Good morning, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm so well, Carrie. It's wonderful to see you.
You too. Okay, I've been counting between you being a guest on the Coffee with Carrie Homeschool podcast and me being a guest on Restoration Home. I think it's been 4, 5 conversations. This might be our
Yeah,
fifth or sixth conversation. So
yeah.
I
And
think that lets everybody know how much I love talking with you.
same. And I've been so blessed to be able to speak at your conference
Thank you.
that I don't know if you're going to host it again, but it was wonderful. And we're going to speak twice at the same conferences this summer. So California homeschoolers are in luck to get to hang out with Carrie and I.
Yeah, we get to hang out. You know what? I decided not to do any more of my home's day of encouragement because, the one conference we're going to be together at the Raising Manzanitas in August in Rancho Cucamonga, they do such a good job. And their vision is exactly what I had in mind when I did those 6 or 7 years of my day of encouragement. That I told the leader, I was like, you know what? You guys do such a great job. You keep doing it, and I'll just tell all the moms to go to yours. And I've been blessed, and you've been blessed to be asked to be speakers at that one. But yeah, but thanks. That was a really fun day. You braved the weather to come. We never
Yes.
have blizzards in Southern California, but that day we had a blizzard.
Oh, that was amazing. Yes.
That was crazy. All right. So, before we get into talking about what you've been up to, which actually is yet another awesome book, I'm so excited. The moms who are actually watching us, not listening it to us, it's beautiful. I love it. It's like the perfect size and everything. Everything in it is awesome. But anyway, before we talk about your new book that's coming out, for the moms who may not know who you are, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your homeschooling, which I think you're almost done, huh?
Almost done. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I have been homeschooling for nearly 29 years. My youngest son is a junior in high school, and it's been a hybrid situation. With all of my kids, we did some community college classes in high school. And so he's done the same thing where he's done some community college classes and also co-op classes. I like to outsource math and science in high school. They're not my best subjects, and I love getting my kids a great education. So, but we've still, had our Bible time and had lots of wonderful discussions through high school. So almost completely done. And it's been really hard to let go of it. I mean, I adore homeschooling. I've been inspired by Charlotte Mason the whole way through. And so early on, we started incorporating art and picture study and nature study and reading beautiful read alouds together, reading the Bible together. And so my character, my education were really shaped by my homeschool years. And it has been just the absolute delight of my life to get to homeschool my 7 children.
7 children. You're blessed 7 times. I
Oh,
love it.
I'm so happy I had so many because I'm very I'm very averse to being alone. And a couple of the kids live far away right now. Like two of them got married and moved to the other side of the country, closer to, like, one is doing helping with a church that his in-laws pastor, and the other one is in a town where they help with a inner city ministry, and taking care of their families and just busy guys. But I thankfully still have 5 in the same state, at least, and 4 in the same town. And I just love having my kids around.
That's awesome having at least the majority of them close by.
Yeah.
All right. So the Charlotte Mason philosophy that shaped you really comes out. Really comes out in your new book. Congrats on that, by the way. But it also comes out in your Peaceful Press curriculum that you create. And so you are a Charlotte Mason inspired, beautiful mom and woman. And so I want to start off with first tell us for the moms who have read, and there's so many of them out there, they just love you, who have read your first 2 books, Mothering by the Book and Habits for a Sacred Home. How is this new book that's coming out different than those two?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I almost feel like it's a trilogy preparing moms to homeschool well because Mothering by the Book was like I aired my dirty laundry about my journey with fear so that moms could see how A, you don't have to be perfect to homeschool. B, homeschooling is a really good spiritual development tool. But C, there's some principles in there that can really help you create a more emotionally healthy homeschool. And I think that is so important for us and our children. Some of the mistakes that I made, you don't have to make because I've done the work of figuring some of that out. And that's all in the Mothering by the Book. And then Habits for a Sacred Home. For me, what I have found is that if you as a mom, you work through some of your trauma, you get some healing for some areas of your life that were maybe out of alignment. But then if you don't have good habits, you'll just snap back into those same mistakes. The Bible actually talks about how, when you clean a room, when you sweep the room, when you get rid of the demons, if you don't fill that room, then
Mhm.
many more will come back. And so habits are, in a sense, filling the room of our life with the activities that are going to help us move towards wholeness and stability and peace. And so Habits for a Sacred Home is based on the rule of Saint Benedict. And it's just a rule of life that we as whatever Christian denomination we're from can apply to create more order and peace and restoration and wholeness in our homes. So then Inspired Homeschool builds off of that because when you have like a lot of wholeness in your home, a lot of peace, then children are going to learn. And in Inspired Homeschool, I feature 10 different people in history who were homeschooled for at least part of their education and who really went on to make huge impacts in culture, despite the fact that they did not have a, you know, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. homeschool day for 12 years of their life. Some of them were completely unschooled. Some of them had a few years of an apprenticeship, but they, by and large, did not have really the kind of thorough education that most of us, even those of us who are maybe more on the gentle homeschool path, are giving our children.
Mhm.
And just helping families, open up their eyes to the things that you're doing that really are effective co-educators, like the atmosphere of your home, the opportunities for curiosity, the opportunities for hands-on learning, all of the different things that we're doing in our homes, and just recognizing the power they have as teachers.
And I love it. Thank you so much for sending this to me. For the moms who are watching, this is what it looks like. But I am going to have a giveaway this week. So when this
Oh,
airs, I'm going to have a fun little giveaway so that moms can get their hands on this. And at the end, I'm going to make sure that you tell the moms how they can pre-order or order it, get their hands on it. But I absolutely love, as I was reading it, I couldn't put it down. I literally read it in one sitting. It's just that good, and it's such a good, easy read. But I love how you weaved the different habits and the different philosophies and the different things that you're talking about in the book. Weave it with Charlotte Mason philosophy, and you weave it with these 10 individuals and how they went on to change the world. But then you bring it back to this practicality where we can apply. I think it was Benjamin Franklin. You were talking more about habits, the importance of developing habits. And so you use not only his life, but you then brought it back down to home education and what moms can do, different habits they can develop in their home. And then the one on Laura Ingalls Wilder's, I think that was the chapter on reading, right? And how important it is and all the different ways that you can do this. And then even though it's super practical, you then end each chapter with almost like call to actions, like write this stuff down, go think about this, pray about this, do this with your family this week. And then you give them further things to read. I mean, it's just beautifully woven in such a way that I read it and go, oh, yeah, well, I can see how, C.S. Lewis was, this great world changer who just happened to be homeschooled for a while. But how can I apply that? Oh, you answer that question and you tell us exactly how we can use some of the same ways that C.S. Lewis either was educated or the way that he lived his life and how we can apply that in our homeschooling. And it's beautifully done and it's so fun to read. So thank you for that.
oh, thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate the encouragement. It's such a gift.
All right. So what do you hope when you were writing this book? Like you said, it was you feel like it's the end of your trilogy. What do you hope moms will walk away with after reading The Inspired Homeschool? I mean, what's that one thing or maybe a few things that you really want them to carry back into their homes and into their hearts?
Yeah, I really want them to have some confidence in the naturalness of learning because I feel like so many moms, out of a lack of confidence, are mixing up rigor with actual learning. And so they're giving their children a lot of repetitive workbooks and worksheets, and they're filling their days up so full that there is no time for wonder or for self, interest led learning. And then children are maybe their gifts are actually not being nurtured because there's no time to even recognize what those gifts are. It's just all parent led. And I feel sad for families who feel like that is the best way to learn. It's proven out in history that's not necessarily the best way to learn. It's a good way to raise factory workers, but factories are being automated. And so it's not necessarily what we need in the future. What we really need in the future is more creative learners, people who have more of an imagination. Even I was just reading a post about the Claude Anthropic AI founder. One of the co-founders had a literature degree, and so families who are squeezing out, like they're not reading aloud to their kids and they're not doing any projects with their kids because they're just filling out workbooks all day. You're actually not facilitating an education for the future in your children. And so it might feel like, but I'm checking all the boxes. But if you're checking all the boxes of stuff that actually doesn't matter, then you're not nurturing that ability to be flexible and emotionally intuitive and creative and imaginative that is really needed in the future.
Yeah, and I really love how to boil it down, you really emphasize, at least for a big part of the first part of the book, was the importance of childhood and letting our kids actually have a childhood that encompasses all the things you were talking about. Time to be bored, time to be curious, time to explore, time to investigate, time for our teens, right? To marinate in the things that they're learning and they're reading and discovering their gifts and their talents and then pursuing them and getting, really good at them and then using them out in the world. But all of that starts in childhood. And I love how you even you talked a little bit about your childhood and things like that. And just uh, somehow, like in my situation, my childhood wasn't bad, right? But I don't really remember a lot of it because it was this, I went to school, I came home, did homework, had dinner, took a bath, started all over again. Went to school, came home. I mean, there was no time in there for me to just, explore in a way that kids who are home educated can do. And so I love that part. And I really do feel like moms need to hear that from mentor moms like you, that it's okay. And actually, not only is it just okay, do it, moms. Give your kids the opportunity to
Yeah.
just be a kid and to play.
Right. And I'm not a gentle parent. Like I would never I would never call myself a gentle parent. I would never I would never align myself with what is thought of as gentle parenting in kind of the framework of having no guidelines for the day, or being an unschooler, or having your child choose everything throughout the day. That's not what I'm advocating for in this book, but I'm advocating for thinking through what is important, having a vision, and then making space for that vision. So, for us as a family, it was really important to have family worship, to either sing a hymn or sing some praise songs, read the Bible. And so I wasn't going to, fill my children's days with workbooks and then squeeze out time to be with Jesus. Like, I was clear on my vision. So I'm probably more of like an essentialist, where vision and purpose is very important to me. And so I'm not going to be put into fear by the voice of a public school system that really doesn't care about our kids. Like, they're doing a terrible job. They're doing a terrible job. Like, I'm sorry, but Yes, there are some kids who come out and they can go to college, but culture and society is very angry and depraved in so many ways. And so why would I worry about their standards in the application of educating my children? I almost always felt like I could educate my children better than anybody else, partly just because of my own curiosity. My dad was he was a learner. He's always been someone who loves to research and learn about things. And so it was modeled in my home that we didn't need necessarily someone to teach us, that we could learn on our own. And so, in my homeschool, what I did make space for and guidance for is my children to learn on their own, whether it's making music or reading or building, or in many ways, creativity was nurtured in our home. There was space for that. But we also had chore time, and we also had our morning time that was very structured. We all sat together. There was a lot of opportunity for discussion, but it wasn't an option for my kids to opt out of that. And so over the course of our almost 29 years of homeschooling, I've read hundreds of books out loud. We have a whole sort of family culture that's shaped around these books that, unfortunately, a lot of people have never even heard of, much less read. And so each of my three books, they feature people and stories in history. Most of these stories I've either read to my children, we've talked about, we've discussed in some way, my kids have been exposed to. So it was a deep education. You could say it was rigorous, but it was not that we were sitting there doing school for even 4 hours a day. We had an hour or two for morning time, an hour for math, an hour for language arts, and then usually in the afternoon, my kids had some free time to explore their own interests.
Yeah, and I love how you start off in your book talking about that philosophy because once the mom knows their vision, why they're doing this, and their family values the things that the reason they brought them home or they're keeping them home, obviously there's something there that they want to teach them and they want them that when they go off into the world to carry with them, right? Once we know that, then that helps us do all the things you just talked about. What's our day going to look like? Are we going to have morning time? If so, what's going to be incorporated in that? Are they going to have lots of free time? If so, what are we going to do? What am I going to allow? What am I going to help them do? And it even helps answer that crazy question, what curriculum should I use? Once you know your philosophy and your reason, your why, then it helps you answer all the other important questions. And so I love that you started with that. And it's funny, my mentor, now I know so many talented public and private school teachers out there. So I'm not knocking them. But he used to tell me all the time, Carrie, your worst day of home education is still better than the best day in public school. I'm like, okay, I got this. I got this. So yeah.
Yeah, and especially, when you learn like about health, about
Mhm.
emotional regulation, like just the experience for a child of being in a hard desk all day under a fluorescent light with very little contact with any kind of natural like dirt or grass or sunshine, even just that in itself is very counterproductive to learning. And a lot of neuroscience is showing up and talking about how important joy is for learning. How children, when we as human beings are in a playful or joyful state, we have such an easier time learning. I just saw this quote by Abraham Maslow about how mature people are able to play, whereas, they're able to almost like be in a childlike state out of maturity. Whereas sometimes people who are stunted emotionally, they'll snap back to childish behaviors, partly because they never did have a healthy childhood. But it's always possible to heal that, which is one of the reasons I also love homeschooling. Is it's so good for us as mothers if we, as we work through our own stuff, to get to have that joy of learning ourselves again, have that spark of life ourselves again.
And I love how science is starting to catch up
Yes.
with all of the reasons that many of us, our homeschool age group and the ones who came before us, the reasons we one, some of the reasons we came home to do this was to have the grass and the dirt and the natural sunlight and the experiences and the exercise and the movement and being able to do all of these things that now science is finally catching up and saying, yes, exercise before you learn, do some movement during and after because it helps them remember. Put your feet in grass or dirt, get some natural sunlight, especially in the morning. It helps with the learning. Just all of these things that, before we would have been called crunchy mamas or tinfoil hat mamas, whatever.
Yeah.
But science is actually backing it up now, which, we just knew because that's how kids are created by our God. So
Hmm.
all right, so speaking of these fabulous 10 people that are in your book, I want the moms to go read the book, but just give them a little taste. Tell us about one of the world changers or the historical um, heroes that are in your book. So, like, how can this person's home education inspire us to pursue more joy and to be more confident?
Wow, such a good question. There's so many diverse people now, and I think that's one of the things that I really want moms to feel hopeful about is
Mhm.
these are 10 different people with very diverse circumstances. Like, C.S. Lewis lost his mother very young, and that was a very traumatic event. And so part of his journey is sort of making some mistakes and having some emotional issues.
Mhm.
Elizabeth Googe, her mother was very sickly, and so she lived in a very safe and what would be thought of as a happy home, but she was the only child to a sickly mother, and so I'm sure there was some stuff going on there, and yet even these hardships that these people experienced came out in beauty in their adult work. And so I hope you as a mom in whatever state you are just feel so much hope recognizing like, Laura Ingalls Wilder is another one who suffered a lot of hardship. And I talk about her in relation to practical skills, talk about Elizabeth Goudge in relation to a feast of living ideas, C.S. Lewis in terms of our ability to express our ideas creatively. And so with each of these people that I feature, they didn't all have a fairy tale childhood. Leonardo da Vinci was a a an illegitimate. Basically, his parents were never married, and so he wasn't even allowed to have an education because of that. And yet, the art and creativity that came out of him, partly because he had a childhood that was very free, living on his family farm and having an opportunity to look at the grass and look at the animals and just really have a lot of wonder and curiosity about life. That's part of what made him so great. And so the things in your childhood, in your children's lives, in your life that might look like limitations to you might actually be those seeds of greatness. And so instead of fretting, I think start to just look at what's good and really start being thankful for what you do have in your life. Sometimes those limitations, those things that look like lack to us are actually going to be used in your children's life for a great impact in their lives and even in culture, because the people I feature in here, they really have made an impact for good. Booker T. Washington was born in slavery, and he started the first college for African American, for people coming out of slavery, and people today are still educated at that college. So there's just these beautiful stories of people who didn't necessarily have a perfect life or perfect education, but you can find things about their life that help inform us in our homeschooling today, and to do an excellent job educating our children, but also should give us so much hope that no matter the circumstances, God has made our children in his image. He's made them to be creative, orderly, authoritative, world-changing beings like he is. And so what we have to do is just learn how to nurture those gifts.
And I'm so glad that you bring up it's up to us to help nurture those gifts. And so I want to talk just a little bit before we run out of time about that. We all have that mom guilt of I'm messing up my kid, I'm ruining them. It was an awful day where, just totally screaming and lost it. And we're just so worried that we're going to scar our kids and mess them up and we're doing it wrong. But I've often heard, I love this. I often heard you say that moms who homeschool their children are world changers too. So we're not just raising changers, we're world changers, because we have accepted the call to home educate our kids. So, how can making the decision to home educate our children literally change our world for the better?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And this is one I talk about a lot in Habits for a Sacred Home, because looking at the women that I covered in that book, the women that I wrote about as exemplifying the different roles of Saint Benedict, each one of them was just a normal housewife. A couple were a little bit more extraordinary. Amy Carmichael was running an orphanage, a women's home, basically. So a couple of them were doing sort of bigger things, but for the most part, they were really just housewives. They're really, Edith Schaefer was a housewife. Ruth Bell Graham was a housewife. Sabina Wurmbrand, a housewife. And yet their efforts, they wrote books about their experiences that have shaped Christian women for decades, and then have shaped, the books that I'm writing that are helping shape a next generation are partly the fruit of learning from those women who were just being faithful in the little that was put in front of them. And God gave them, rulership or authority over great things. Especially thinking about Edith Schaefer, she wrote many books of her own. And many of the homeschool moms today haven't written, I think it's The Creative Art of Homemaking. I might be getting that title wrong. Or she wrote a book, I think, What is a Family? It's her or Elizabeth Elliot. So they wrote these books. Edith Schaefer wrote a great book about the 10 Commandments as applied to family life. And many women of our generation are not going to read them. But they're like Susan Schaefer Macaulay is Edith Schaefer's daughter, and she wrote two of the most kind of formative books for homeschool families, For the Children's Sake and For the Family's Sake. And those books, again, those have shaped so many of the homeschool authors today. And so it is really encouraging to see that these women just being faithful in the small things, they impacted so many people. We don't even know how many people they impacted. And then they're making an impact on those people who are impacting the next generation. So it is so encouraging to see that our work as moms, reading out loud to our children, we're preserving Western civilization. Like, there is such an attack on Western civilization, such a tearing down of the values that have shaped Western civilization, values like natural law, biblical ethics. Those things are, they're part of our Christian worldview, but they also are the foundation of Western civilization. And so as these things are being torn down, and sort of like the nuclear family being denigrated and fathers being denigrated, and family life or being a mom, like some of these things that have built civilization are in many ways, there's a lot of shade being cast on them. There's a lot of kind of tearing down, in a sense, of the ancient ruins. We are rebuilding, as it says in the Bible. We are rebuilding those. We're restorers of streets to dwell in, as it says in Isaiah, as we teach our children the Word of God and pray with them and teach them how to make a home and teach them how to be in a family and love people, and not just live in a state of victimhood, not just live in a state of sort of self-destructive and culture-destroying behaviors, but actually teach them how to live and, live as a child of God, live as as the beloved.
Yeah. So being faithful in the small things is building and restoring this world and civilization. So I love that. I love when you talk about that. It's just so inspiring. Okay, so we're running out of time. So make sure, tell the moms the name of your new book, how they can get it, pre-order it once it's out, how to order it, how they can follow you. You're like me, you just love Instagram. Where and how they can follow you, how they could get into your restoration home community, and then also Peaceful Press. So give it all, and I'll
Oh,
make sure to put it
thanks,
all in the
Carrie.
show notes.
Yeah, so you can find the Inspired Homeschool at inspiredhomeschoolbook.com. And if you pre-order, I actually have a free homeschool workshop that goes with that, with a really comprehensive workbook. It's about planning. And then I have a wonderful master book list. And I have a free, I think it's a student planner. So there's a few free pre-order bonuses if you go to that page, inspiredhomeschoolbook.com. And then the Peaceful Press is my literature-based homeschool curriculum. We have for preschool through middle school. You read beautiful books with your children, and then in the early years, you'll do motor skill activities, which really strengthen brain connections and help your children be more fluent readers and writers. And then in the elementary years, we continue focusing on great literature and include practical skills and projects, which help develop those great STEM skills. So that's at thepeacefulpress.com, but you can also get access to that at inspiredhomeschoolbook.com. And then Restoration Home Podcast, Restoration Home Community is my, ecosphere for helping moms develop life-giving habits for a flourishing family. So, as you're working towards maybe overcoming a childhood that was somewhat marked by neglect, or you didn't have a lot of guidance in your childhood and you're trying to figure out how to be a wife and a mom and a homemaker and all these details that are involved in that life, the Restoration Home Community and podcasts are here to support you in that journey of developing better habits so that you can have a flourishing family culture.
You bet. And I'll make sure all of that is in the show notes and in the email that I send out every Thursday when your episode drops. So they can easily click the link and go find you. Okay.
Oh, Carrie, I so appreciate you. I'm thrilled that I get to hang out with you twice this summer. It's going to be so much fun.
I know. So before you leave me, I love to end with this question. So, what words of encouragement can you give moms who are still struggling to believe that they're making a difference?
Oh, such a good question. And what we believe is so important. It shapes our actions. If James Clear talks a lot in Atomic Habits about how sometimes those habits have to start with identity. Like instead of trying to do better mom things, we have to start feeling like a better mom. And for me, most of that has come from just inviting Jesus into moments of pain in my life and letting him tell me the truth. Like the Bible says all throughout, you have been loved with an everlasting love. God sings over you with gladness. He's with you always, even to the end of the age. And so in scripture, we can find the proof that we are loved and accepted. And when we believe that about ourselves, then we can start to live that way, because our fears and our self-doubt is communicated to our children, and they often feel like it's their fault. And so learning how to just replace those lies, like use your imagination for good. The Bible says, think about whatever things are true and good and of good report, lovely and of good report. And so in your life, when you're starting to imagine, oh, I'm such a bad mom and my kids will probably never get into college and they're going to hate me when they grow up. And, you start imagining these things, start replacing that. Start saying, my kids love me. I am a great mom. I am an overcomer. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We're going to have such a close, happy family. My kids are going to really impact the kingdom for good. They're going to do God's will. Just start saying life-giving affirmations over yourself. We actually have a daily journal that goes with the Restoration Home Community on Amazon with a list of biblical affirmations, because it's so easy for us to lie to ourselves, to speak, death-giving words. But the Bible says, choose life. I've set before you life and death. Choose life. And part of choosing life means choosing to believe what God says is true and then speaking it over ourselves and our family instead of listening to lies.
Amen. You preach it, girl. Love it. So, if anything, join Restoration Home Community just for that, to get that affirmation list and journal. So thanks, Jennifer. I can't wait to see you at the Raising Manzanitas in Rancho Cucamonga, and actually in a couple of weeks when this drops in Northern California. So we'll see you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.
You too.